A very warm welcome to everyone who is joining us online. So, this webinar is conducted by Seeker Mentor. We are an online platform that aims to make quality mentorship more accessible and personalized. I am Sahil and I will be the host or the moderator for today. And I am an alumni of IIM Bangalore. Hello, everyone who is joining in. In our last webinar, we conducted career insights into consulting. We tried to understand the life of a consultant, how to prepare and pursue a career in this field, and what would the recruitment process look like. In case some of you have missed out on that, you can go and check out our YouTube channel, Seeker Mentor, or on this Instagram page as well. We have all the previous sessions on our pages. Hi Sindhuja. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, today we bring our fourth webinar series of the Career Insights, and today our sector for today is finance. The finance industry actually continues to grow at an exponential rate, and it brings a lot of career opportunities. It is a multifaceted industry and has a diverse range of career options. It is dynamic and it is challenging. And the key to succeed is to select the right option which is compatible to your skill sets and your interests. So without further ado, we'll invite our guest for today, which is Shubhi. Hi Shubhi, how are you doing?
Hi Sahil, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Hope you're well and keeping safe.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking out time and joining us today on our webinar. Shubhi, just for everyone who's online, just to give a brief about Shubhi. Shubhi is a fellow IIM Bangalore alumnus. She's a chartered accountant. She's CFA level 3, and she's also working in Barclays, the investment banking division. Along with that, she's been pretty active in college and has been a part of a couple of finance and investment clubs as well. So, welcome, Shubhi, again. And yeah,
Thanks, Sahil.
I'll just take some time and set the content or the agenda for today's call. We'll be covering the career insights into finance webinar into 4 sections. The first section will be more about to understand the different career options in finance, and we'll then move on to talk about more of your experiences, your learnings in this particular field. Then we move on to how does one prepare, how does one utilize their current time to build their career towards this goal, and lastly, what do the recruiters look like, and how can they prepare the recruitment process? So yeah, so we'll take about around 40 minutes to cover these 4 sections, and then we'll leave it open for Q&A. Have received some questions from the previous registrations and other sources. We'll touch upon some of them. And meanwhile, any of you who are here online, if you have any questions, please feel free to sort of type it out in the comment section, and me and Shri will do that as and when we proceed. So does that sound right, Shubhi?
Yeah. Perfect.
So we'll just start off with our first section, which is to know more about finance and the various career options in it. And our first question is, Shubhi, so what are the various career options one can find in the finance domain?
Okay, sure. So there's actually a very wide variety of roles that somebody can look at. For instance, there's investment banking, there's private equity, venture capital, there's asset management, there's corporate banking, and then there are more complex financial products. So there could be structured financing and more derivatives oriented roles, and of course markets.
So yeah, okay. So can you give a brief about some of the major roles?
Sure. Sure. So I'll start with investment banking. Investment banking involves 3 primary segments. So there's mergers and acquisitions. There you would look at, say, acquiring a company, selling a company, acquiring, say, a minority or a majority stake. Then you could look at merger of 2 companies. In investment banking, you're typically advising a client if you're in M&A. So the client is executing the transaction and you're helping them with it. Then there is the equity capital market side of it. So think of something like an equity IPO or a QIP. And then you could look at the debt side. So think of a bond issuance or a loan given to a client, right? Then on marketing, on the market side, there is, I would think of it in two terms, the sales role and the trading role. On private equity, you're basically managing a portfolio of, it could be say a 200 million portfolio, or it could be say a $3 billion portfolio. You're basically acquiring, you're basically investing from the portfolio for making money for the partners, right? You will typically invest in a relatively early stage company. So this would typically be pre-IPO, but not necessarily. Venture capital is something that invests in a relatively more early stage company, and you're looking for investments in say early stage startups. There the role in operations is more, so I would call it a mix of finance and operations. There are corporate banking roles, so they are relatively more traditional products. So you're giving a loan or advising on foreign exchange, etc. Then there could be a typical corporate finance role, which sits in a large corporation. You're in the corporate finance function of that company. So you could be looking at evaluating projects. You could also be looking at acquiring companies or selling, say, part of the company, for the larger corporate that you're working with. Then there could be an asset management role. Again, you're investing for the portfolio over there. And then more complex roles in terms of structured finance. So it could be structuring a loan, or it could be something like a complex derivative product, right? You could even be creating new products, say, so financial engineering. So yeah, that is the broad variety of roles that you could look at. But again, there are a lot of other roles, and there's a lot of diversity.
Right. So thank you for touching upon these variety of roles, from investment banking to markets to PE, VC, financial engineering. So should we? How are these? What are the different skill sets do each of these fields require, and how are they different?
Okay, so in terms of skill sets, I would look at it in two terms. One is on the more technical side, right? So for an entry level role, something like your financial reporting basics, your corporate finance basics, these are a must, right? And similarly, something like your skills in Excel or PowerPoint, they are also equally important, but it might not be something that is expected out of you when you join. It's more of an add-on. So if you know it well, it's a value add for you, but you could also learn it on the job. On the softer side, I would say things like people skills, your networking, negotiation, working in teams, right? Communication. These are equally important, and something that is often overlooked, especially when you're a new entrant in the industry. But as you progress over the years, the softer skills become more and more important.
Right.
Yeah, and in terms of difference across roles, a lot of finance roles are really fast paced. So your skill sets would differ, based on the particular role that you're in. So say if you're in a trading role, you have to really quickly execute a trade, or you have to be more intuitive, and you have to take decisions on your feet. And in something like investment banking, in an M&A role, it could be a long run, say 3 month or a 6 month project. So it comes more to sticking to that project, going further into the depth. And a PE firm, of course, they would know an asset in and out, and the industry in and out. So to that extent, the skills differ across the roles.
Right. So, so you mentioned these variety of roles which a person in this industry can be in. If I today I'm working in investment banking and I want to shift to market, or tomorrow if I'm working in a PE firm and I want to do asset management, how easy is it for folks to switch between these different roles?
So it's relatively more easy at the early stage than at the later stage, but there's no rule. I've seen people who've switched after say 5 years, 6 years from a markets role to a core investment banking role, so into M&A or on the financing side. So it's fairly common, but as a new entrant into the industry, I would say that I see it more common in the early entrants than in the later stage. It could be a matter of preference. So there are no hard barriers that once you've started a career on a particular side, you cannot move. And especially switch from an investment banking role to a PE or a VC role is fairly common.
Right. So,
Yeah.
coming to sort of the more on the work life, a lot of folks, they fear or they have the perception that finance firms usually make you work really long hours. So, what are your thoughts on that? Are there really fixed hours in this domain, or it's a bit challenging time wise?
So there are no fixed hours. And again, the hours differ across roles. A typical investment banking role, so over there you can easily expect 15 to 16 hours on a daily basis, usually including weekends. But I mean, of course, there are ups and downs over there.
Right.
Trading roles are relatively similar, but then there is at least a barrier of how long the market is operating. So I see my friends easily getting the weekends off. I don't see them sitting till 1 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
That private equity is more or less as demanding as investment banking. Other roles like asset management, corporate banking tend to be relatively uh, uh, tend to have relatively better hours. But a core investment banking role or a private equity role tends to be fairly demanding.
Right. We'll touch upon this point in the second section when we're talking about your experiences as well. But coming towards the general industry, do you see a lot of people traveling, travel being required in this domain, or is it more of, or if are there client interactions involved, or are they more of working with the company in office and the
Okay.
day-to-day work?
So a lot of these roles are client facing. So investment banking is entirely client facing. In markets,
Right.
sales is largely finance client facing. Private equity is more of, they're facing their investees and their investment committee. So client facing might not be the right term, but they are actively dealing with external parties. Corporate banking again is client facing. So there's a fair amount of client interaction involved, and you get exposure at a very early stage. So to set an example, for example, in the first 3 months of my joining the M&A practice, I had access to client discussions, to client meetings. So that is there. In terms of traveling, it's not as much as in a consulting role or a marketing role, but it really depends upon the project that you're on. So in a PE/VC role, in an M&A role, there could be a fair bit of traveling involved depending upon your project. So I've personally traveled quite a bit for a couple of my projects, and by that I mean at some point, even on a weekly basis, I had to fly for a day, morning, evening.
Right.
So traveling is involved, yeah.
Right. So I think that if people had that misconception also, I think it gets cleared. You might not have to travel as much as to client sites as per
Yeah.
with respect to consulting or marketing, but there are client interactions which you have to be a part of. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we've touched upon the questions in the first section, and we move on to some of the questions on the second section, which are more about you and your experiences. So, Shubhi, firstly, we had this question asked to us in the registration forms as well. You have achieved quite a lot, in your career.
I'm humbled.
You are a certified chartered accountant, a chartered financial analyst. You have done your MBA, and you're working in the investment banking domain. You've been part of various finance club. How do you manage to do all of this? How has your career journey been thus far?
Okay. So I would say that at the outset, you don't know that you're going to do all of these things, and the career sort of evolves. And I mean, today, if somebody asks that where I'm going to be 5 years from now, it's a difficult question to answer, and it sort of happens, through the course of your career. So, but having said that, I think just a general awareness of what is happening around you. So, speak to your seniors, speak to your colleagues, and see what other people are doing. And it helps to take a very informed decision in terms of what might be a right fit for you, what might not be a right fit for you. There are 1,000 things to do, and then you need to pick out, in terms of where you want to go and what you want to achieve. Based on that, what fits, because time is a constraint, right?
Right.
And then once you've got your sight set on something, and that coupled with your personal interest in a particular field, then that path automatically creates itself. So for something like joining clubs in college, for example, was, it was more out of interest than from a career point of view. But a decision to pursue CFA after CA was more thought through, and same applies for an MBA. That, if this is a particular career path that I want to take, these are the steps relatively easier, and it'll make me easier to reach there.
Right.
And in terms of managing time, I mean, your interest will guide it. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get the last point, Shruti.
I'm saying that in terms of managing a lot of things together, I think your interest and your drive will automatically guide it.
Right. No, I think I totally agree with that, but quite an humble answer. But a very important point that you touched upon is that there are actually so many things to do, and you really have to be
Right.
focused, aware upfront on how do you want to shape the career you want to. So yeah, I think that gives us an insight. You have charted your career. Coming to more of your current aspects, can you tell us a bit about your journey at Barclays, and how did you decide to get into this role?
Okay, sure. So I'm a part of the M&A division in Barclays Investment Bank, and I've been around for more than a year over here. I interned here as well, got a PPO. So I mean, the journey has been a roller coaster. It has been absolutely exciting, and the thrill of the job keeps you going. So I mean, that has been great. In terms of deciding what to do, I think my interest towards investment banking sort of developed while I was doing my CFA, and then that is what guided the decision for an MBA. And then, the interactions with your seniors, with your peers, everything also helps you decide, whether you want to pursue this particular field and which bank to target. For me, selection of Barclays was, first of all, it fit into my aspiration for investment banking, and then I had interacted with multiple banks. This particular interaction went particularly well. So that is how it worked out for me. I think it's similar for my other colleagues in other banks as well, that it really depends upon what fits well for you and what fits well for your employer. Right. So yeah, that.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of questions from Snigdha and Priya on how to internships. Snigdha, Priya, we'll touch upon this in the subsequent section. Yeah. So, Shubhi, what are your roles and responsibilities in Barclays today? Can you explain us about a typical work week or a work day, or your or any different projects that you've worked upon?
Okay, sure. So so given that I've been here for 1 year, I'm currently an analyst in the investment banking division. So I work both on live deals. So these could be acquisition, sell-side transactions. So somebody is trying to onboard an investor or sell a part of their division, or it could be on the buy side. So somebody is looking to acquire a company, and we are advising them on it, right? I've worked on both of these sides. I've worked on sell side deals. I've worked on buy side deals. A couple of them are in fact ongoing at the moment. Some are so, and the good thing is that at the early stage, the exposure that you have is to all the sectors that a particular firm is covering, and it first of all, you don't get tied or fixed to a particular sector. You have exposure to multiple sectors, and then it helps you decide how you want to progress also later in your career, right? If you want to specialize in a particular sector, it helps you choose that well. In terms of the work that I do as an analyst, it could be pure deal related work. So it could be financial modeling, it could be some sort of a returns analysis, or it could also be on the business development side. So preparation of pitches. So when you go up to a client, say that this is what we can do for you, and this is, say, a good idea for you to pursue, and this is why you should hire us, and so that is on the business development side. And then there are ad hoc day-to-day tasks which are which come to an analyst. So you at the same time you have to balance a lot of these things together. You could be working on multiple deals, you could be working on a few pitches, you could be handling ad hoc work. So a lot of multitasking also is present over there.
Right. I think that gives a very good picture about the role of an analyst in a company like Barclays and what are the various things that you have to do. And it actually sounds like a basket full of different kinds of things that you have to do, talking to clients as well,
Right.
touching upon deals as well, and the day-to-day work there. I think we had one question from Snigdha. Probably we can touch upon that. Is there are these investment banks and financial institutions, and then there are consulting firms which do consulting for for clients in the finance domain. For example, companies like Oliver Wyman, they have a lot of financial consulting. So how are these two roles different?
Okay, so I would call a pure investment banking role. It's more focused on finance, and consulting. The nature of projects would differ, I would say. So a financial advisory might not necessarily be related to a transaction, right?
Right.
And consulting could be more vast than that. Your projects will be could be spread. Basically, it could be spread beyond a pure transaction approach, right?
Okay.
And for us, it is very for an investment banking, it is more of a brokering role. You are enabling a transaction, you are advising somebody on the transaction. So to that extent, it differs. Yeah.
Right. I hope, Snigdha, that answered your question. Moving on to the next question, Shubhi. So, in your day-to-day life, what are the various tools or platforms do you require to, enable your career? Like we know that you might be working on a lot of Excel, but apart from that, what are the different tools or platforms that you use?
I think Excel and PowerPoint pretty much make up for the most important tools that we use. But apart from that, Bloomberg would be useful. But it's apart from that, it's just Excel, PowerPoint, and Google.
Okay.
And then there are firm specific tools, of course, to enable you, but not something that you have to worry about unless you've joined a firm, and then
So,
they train you on it.
right. So folks can just be a little more proficient on PowerPoint and Excel. I think that should be enough prerequisite for starting career. Moving on, what is the career progression like for people in finance firms? How do the roles and responsibilities evolve? How can one see themselves growing in a particular field?
Okay. All right. So let me explain the typical hierarchy in an investment bank, and I think it's similar in a P firm and in a VC firm, also in a corporate finance, corporate banking role as well. So you typically start out as an analyst. It could be for 2 to 3 years. Then you progress to an associate or an AVP level. Again, in about 3 to 4 years, you could become a VP, and post that, you become a director. The years between VP and director is really something that it depends. There's no fixed time period. And after that, you become an MD, right? So an MD could be leading a particular practice, say an M&A practice or a financing practice. Or in case of a private equity firm, they could be leading a sector or the firm as a whole, right? And then there are country heads and there are business heads. So that is how the particular typical progression looks like. In terms of skills and roles and responsibilities, I think at the early years it's more execution oriented. So as an analyst, you would be working on the PowerPoint, on the model, and then as you evolve and you progress in your career, the role becomes more client management oriented and business development oriented.
Right.
So the decision making, sort of changes over time.
So early on, we do more of the the groundwork on learning on how the deals are done, how more of
Right.
personal involvement doing the exact work. But
Yeah.
as you it sort of transitions more into business development, growing that particular unit or growing
Right.
that particular. So yeah, I think that that gives a very good picture of how the career progression looks like. Coming to the final question of this section, and then we'll touch upon a couple of questions which we have on chat. So the final question for this section is, you have earlier said in the previous question that this is actually a demanding role, right? You give around 10, 12, 14, 15 hours. There are no boundaries between weekdays, required to succeed in this particular industry. So I wanted to ask you what is, you must have met so many people, right, working in Barclays, a lot of seniors as well. What is the key to succeed in this particular industry?
Okay. So I would say it is to have the right combination of your technical stronghold as well as your softer skills. So like I said, that initially your technical skills will help you, but over time it shifts towards your softer skills, and that's when that is what helps you with business development and your client management. So uh, I would recommend that you start building your network early on. You start observing negotiations early on, and that is something that over time will help you when it is your time to build the firm.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that that sums up this particular section. We learned so much about you and the role that you play in Barclays. We'll touch upon a couple of questions. We got one question from I think Priya. She asked, "What is the right time to pursue a CFA? What would be your responsibility?"
For CFA, the good part about CFA is that it can happen at any time. So I see students in their final years who are who get started with CFA. I see people who are pursuing CFA while they are working or while they are pursuing their MBA. So I think CFA provides that kind of flexibility. So don't look at it in terms of trying to finish it in a given time frame, and you could do it when you're 40. So there's really no time frame. It really depends upon uh, you know uh, think of it in two terms. How the curriculum appeals to you, and what value it adds to your profile when an employer is evaluating you, right?
Right.
So only if there's a good match between these two, I would recommend that you go ahead with it.
Right. And I think there was one question from Snigdha who asked, what are the differences between a certification or a CFA and FRM, and how does one decide what to pursue?
I think they're both equally good courses, and there's a fair amount of overlap between the two. But one thing that I've observed over the years is that there's a higher recognition today of CFA than there is for FRM. So that is something to consider. But in terms of course curriculum, I think they're both equally good.
Perfect. So I think actually these questions, set us up well for the third section also, where we try to learn more about the preparation bit. Coming to the first question, should be a lot of people, either undergrad or postgrad, have a variety of options to choose from, right? A person in doing an MBA or a person pursuing their BCom, say, they can move into marketing, they can move into finance, move into consulting, data analytics. Why would how would you advocate person to build a career in finance? Why should one pursue finance as one of the career options?
Okay. So again, look at it from two aspects. One is what the industry offers to you, and the other is your personal inclination towards the field, right? In terms of what the industry offers, I think it's challenging, it's fast paced, and you get a lot of exposure from a very early stage. Just think about sitting as an analyst, 1 year uh, out from your MBA, and sitting on the same table as an MD who's heading a $3 billion fund, say, right? So that is the
Right.
kind of exposure I'm talking about, or sitting across from the table from CEOs or CFOs, and just having access to the conversation and thought process. So that is in terms of exposure, I think, and even in terms of client interaction, it is an industry that offers you access from a very early stage. So that is in terms of exposure, in terms of the excitement, the thrill. And and then there is your personal inclination, right? That does the field appeal to you? So I have friends who say that मुझे finance नहीं समझ में आता, I don't want to do it, I don't want anything to do with it, right? So that is where your personal preference also takes over, and so you have to look at a mix of both.
Right. So I think very aptly answered that. Shubhi. So you have to have that personal inclination to have the drive to put that effort. And yes, as you said, it does give a lot of exposure, a lot of visibility on how things work in financial aspects of companies. But in addition to that, it is demanding and it is challenging. So if a person is up for it, then I think it should be a good career option for them.
Right.
Coming to the next question, I think many people, it is one of the most asked questions, I think, for people in the finance industry is that is it necessary to have a background in finance or be a CA or a CFA to pursue a career in this industry? And how can outsiders sort of, pursue a career in this?
No, there's absolutely no requirement to have a background in finance. In fact, there are firms which hire undergrads from engineering colleges straight. So there's no requirement, and even in recruitments, I don't see a particular preference for hiring a CA or a CFA. It does give you an edge though. So that is a fact that you have a head start, I would say. But in terms of preference by recruiters, I don't really see that, because a lot of training for the job happens once you've joined. So it as long as you have an inclination for it and you show that you're working towards it, you work on your basics, I think that is sufficient.
Right. So you said firms hire both people with relevant background and experience and people who are from a different experience but show certain
Right.
skill set. But in terms of preparation, how do you feel that the preparation for say an engineer who wants to get into
Mm-hmm.
this differs from someone who is from a commerce background with say either of these certifications to get into a particular role? How do the preparation strategy change for both of these roles?
See, if you have a background in finance, then expect to be drilled much more on your technicals, right? So that is generally what I have observed. So if you are a CA, if you are a CFA, you cannot get away with not answering a very basic technical question, right? It is not true for say an engineer who's appearing for an interview. you know um, the questions will tend to be relatively more basic, but again, given that an engineer has not had sufficient finance background, they would have to work. So both the sides will end up preparing for the same kind of technicals, but a CA or a CFA would typically be drilled much more, and the expectations on technicals would be much higher.
Yeah.
But that's
So
it. I mean, preparation remains the same.
So from what I understand is that for people, the person who is not from the background, they will also have to do some sort of learning towards the basics say, of finance and
Right,
accounting. And
right,
but someone from the background will be sort of drilled further. They will be
right.
expected to know a little bit more compared to people who are from the engineering background. But from what you tell us is that basic awareness and basic concept at least should be fine, and I think
Right.
that should be good enough.
Yeah.
Great. So one more question, which people ask is if you want to get into one of the coveted companies or roles in IT, PE, VC, is an MBA an essential degree? To get into that, or people without an MBA can also get through.
MBA is not necessary. I have colleagues who are not an MBA, and they are still working in the same capacity as me. So having said that, and like I said, a lot of P firms and even some investment banks hire engineers straight out of college, or BCom grads straight out of college. So MBA is not a necessity, but it does give you a relatively easy access to the profession, because there's no denying that the industry is dominated by MBAs.
Right. So
Yeah,
it does give you a boost, some sort of an
absolutely.
advantage, but not a
Yeah,
blocker. That's what I'm saying.
it's
Yeah.
not a block. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think we answered a couple of questions that people asked. One was, I think, related to folks who are more in the entry level. They're probably, pursuing their bachelor's in commerce.
Mm-hmm.
How do they, start building their acumen and profile in this particular field? How do they approach internship? Can you throw some light on that, Shruti?
Sure. So, it first of all, it depends upon what your undergrad is like. I would say that be active. If you don't have a finance background, then try to be active on the finance side of activities. Because when a recruiter is looking at 400 resumes, they're looking for something that connects a person to finance, right? Because more often than not, all the 400 resumes are equally good. So how do they shortlist a candidate? So they look for some inclination in the candidate towards finance, to first of all not waste time on a candidate who's completely not interested, right?
Right.
So and plus it will give you something to talk about, right, with your recruiter. So while in your undergrad, I would say that try to participate in some finance related activities on campus. There are plenty usually, right? So it will give you something to work with. And of course, you could also look for certifications. If you think about a CFA or an FRM, nobody's telling you to finish all the levels, right? Maybe you could just start with a single level, see whether it appeals to you or not. And it also gives a sort of confirmation to the recruiter that you are serious about this, right?
Right.
So that is a way to think about it.
Right. So I think very valid point is that if you're really focused in a particular role in the finance industry, you need not to have all of these certifications, but at least show that intent on your resume, or show that
Absolutely.
inclination toward by participating in some sort of activities, some competitions or certifications as well. So I think that actually is a good way to sort of kickstart your career in this domain. Having said that, a lot of people are wondering, how do we utilize this entire time, free time? Right now, because of COVID, a lot of people have more time on their hands. How would you recommend these folks use this time productively to build their skill set in this particular domain? Are there any books or courses that you suggest?
Okay, so again, two ways to look at it. So, are you trying to develop your own skill sets, or are you trying to add something to your resume, right? And depending upon that, if you're just looking to build your own skills, then there's plenty of material available online. You could also pick up something like a simple corporate finance book from an MBA program, or a couple of books from a CFA program if you want a structured approach towards learning. There are also courses which are offered by platforms like Coursera. Now, this is from your personal development point of view, but if you're looking for something that you can demonstrate on your resume, then I would go for a more certification oriented approach. So something that you can actually write down and show a certificate for.
Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that talks about how can one utilize their time. That
Yeah.
they can do a lot of courses, build their personal knowledge base as well. And also, if they want to strengthen their resume further, they can do these certifications. Maybe just one level of them, but at least show that intent on their profile, and they can use this time to build their profile towards it and build their acumen towards it. So I
Right.
think with that we sort of come to the end of the third section. We'll move on to the fourth section, which is the recruitment process, right? And I think a lot of our viewers are folks who are going to pursue their, say, MBA, coming back. Can you throw some light on how does the hiring process usually work for these firms, and what are the different steps in the hiring recruitment process?
Okay, so I'll speak from a MBA oriented approach on this. So would benefit the MBA students more than the others. So basically, you will start working on your resume, and your seniors will help you out. But try to have something that, again, like I said, demonstrates your inclination towards finance on your resume. Uh, Typically, the recruiters send out shortlists that could be anywhere from 5 candidates to say 50 candidates. Right. Once you have a shortlist, somebody from the recruiter office will contact you. There could be a few telephonic interview rounds. They could either be technical or just getting a general background on you, right? Uh, One thing to understand is that a recruiter is not just looking for technical skills, they're also looking for your drive, your interest, and a person that they want to work with, right? Think of a person who's going to spend 15, 16 hours a day next to you, right? So apart from just your technical skills, they also want to hire a person that they would like to work with, right? So these
Right.
are the things that they could be evaluating in the telephonic rounds. In fact, there could also be just um, very non-finance kind of questions also, I would say. So think of, say, simple puzzles, or testing your quant skills, like very basics, but that is something that comes up in telephonic rounds. And then on the campus there are again interviews. So it could either be uh, a single interview, or it could be, say, 5 or 6 interviews. It really depends upon the process that the recruiter is following. Something that happens, especially in MBA finance related hiring, is that recruiters sometimes finalize candidates even before coming to the campus. So, that is where you should really be motivated to ace your telephonic rounds, because sometimes you need not even have the campus interview round. But it really doesn't mean anything, and things are very dynamic on the campus when the recruitments happen. So you always have a good chance. And
Right.
one thing is that even if you don't have a short list and you see a recruiter standing idle, go up to them and talk to them.
Right. So I think the biggest thing is showing your intent in that
Absolutely.
particular. And
Yeah.
coming to summarizing the steps, the first step is your resume, the shortlisting. So you prepare your resume, and then you submit it, and then the company shortlist. That will be one level of filtering out. And then you have telephonic interviews where they ask you about questions about general current affairs, financial concepts, or it might be personal personality.
Absolutely. It could be anything under the sun. Yeah.
And then based on that, they come for the interviews on campus, and the interview process begins. And as you said, the telephonic rounds are very important to see whom they prioritize to interview first, and recruit. So, and I think this is the situation in MBA college, but it would not be very different in the undergrad schools as well. Because it should be somewhat similar, and I think people who are also in the undergrad segment can take a cue from this process.
Yes.
Coming to the first step to be the resume shortlisting, can you throw some light on how this shortlisting process works and what the recruiters might be looking for in the resume?
Okay, sure. So, uh, something like CA or a CFA does catch the eye, but but that's just the initial reaction, right? You look at the rest of the resume as well. So anything which stands out on your resume, and especially anything that, like I said, demonstrates your interest in finance, is something that would catch the attention of your recruiter. Your undergrad scores and your 10th and 12th scores, of course, do matter, not as much as the rest of your resume, but it could be more of something to filter somebody out rather than to select somebody. So,
Right,
but of course, but if you have an extraordinary pointer, or or an extraordinary 10th or 12th score, that of course stands out, and that could catch the eye. But ultimately, it is you would typically expect somebody to just skim through quickly your resume, and something that they find attractive, something that they find that will fit well, right?
right,
Or something exciting that you've done, that
right.
helps.
So I think just to add to that, should we, from speaking with respect to the non-engineering, from the engineering folks, Like I was one, and in campus, I have seen a lot of people who are not from the relevant domain but have exhibited, analytical mindset, worked in the analytics
Right.
domain, or have good scores, maybe good certification or scores which point towards a more quantitative mindset as well. I think these points also sort of come out on the resume. So
That's
summarizing,
true.
yeah,
Yeah, so especially, so like I said initially, that if you don't have a finance background, the recruiter is not testing you on your technicals as much as, just evaluating your skills in general. And there, the next proxy to your technicals in finance becomes your quant skills. And that
right.
particularly helps. And so you clearly pointed it out that, your quant skills do stand out if you don't have a finance background. So that helps.
Right. So just to summarize, good academic scores always a bonus for a person in finance domain. If you can exhibit good quant scores, I think that also sounds apt. Otherwise, if you have some sort of a relevant background, relevant work experience in this domain,
Yeah.
or if you have some certification which shows intent, I think these points sort of strengthen your resume and increases your probability of getting shortlisted for these
Yes.
roles. The
Yeah. And
second,
just to, sorry, go ahead.
no,
Okay, so and just to add, I've seen that there's a lot of thrust on extracurricular activities and, your participation in a lot of other activities that you see in, say, a consulting or a marketing role, but I haven't seen that much in finance. So people don't really go down to your extracurricular section as much. Yeah,
no,
so
I
for all the geeks out there.
yeah, I think very valid. So I think these points, if someone keeps in mind, they can surely increase the probability of getting shortlisted. But after shortlisting comes the real test, right? The interview. Can
Yeah.
you talk about some of the questions that you've experienced, or some of the questions the interviewers asked during the
Okay.
recruitment?
Okay, so when you think about a technical interview, it could be pure academic, or it could be related to your awareness about a particular sector as well, right? So you could think about, so I would recommend that prepare very well on your financial reporting 101, right? Typically comes in the first trimester. Then prepare well on your corporate finance basics. So, things like your NPV, IRR, financial ratios. Those are FCFE, FCFF, things like that. These are the basics which are expected out of any candidate who's interviewing for a finance role, right? And especially, yeah, I mean, basically all of these and your financial reporting. So, what I've generally observed is that people who are not from a finance background get drilled more on the reporting side because that is very new to them. And if you already have sufficient finance background, then reporting part would typically be skipped and you would be drilled more on the corporate finance side.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that summarizes well about the concept and topics recruiters touch upon. And and for folks who are going for their MBAs, you will have an opportunity for recruitment during the summer internships. And I think it is very important to also be aware of the concepts you learn in the first and second semester, because
Yeah.
these are things that the recruiters might ask. So yeah, I
Also the
think
names of the professors, please. Yeah.
yeah. So So yeah, I think these questions surely should help people prepare for the interviews. I think with this we sort of came to a close with the questions we had prepared with us, and we have some questions which came through the registration form, and we'll just quickly touch upon some of them. Um, and I think most of the questions we've already covered, but so, okay, this is a question asked by Sanjay. Sanjay, I think we've covered this, but I don't know if you want to touch upon this. How do you manage to pursue, say, a certification with your MBA? Is that recommended or possible to do?
People do it. So the fact is that first couple of terms in an MBA program are much more hectic compared to the other terms. So that is when you have room to make time for other certification programs as well. But what I would recommend is that while you're pursuing an MBA, there are so many campus opportunities that I would recommend that you grab onto those rather than a certification course that you can pursue later on. But it totally depends upon the motivation behind the course that you're trying to pick up. If you're trying to prepare yourself for, say, your final placements, or you want to improve your resume, then of course go ahead and do it. It's fairly manageable, especially third term onwards. But otherwise, see if you can just postpone it and participate in the campus activities, which you will not have access to later on.
Right. I think that's a very valid shoot. And we'll come on to the second question asked by Satvik. What are the skill sets required for getting into a transactions or a markets role?
Okay, I think I sort of covered that initially, or in your early stages, as an entry level participant in the industry, you will require more of technical skills. So of course, like I said, your corporate finance basics are basically, they're a given. You have to have those, right? And then your skills in financial modeling, or putting a good story together in a presentation, things like that matter, right? And then going forward, of course, your role evolves, your skill sets evolve, and the requirements out of your job also change.
Right. I think with this we've covered all things. Some of the questions are sort of things which we have covered in our conversation, Shruti.
Okay.
And I think with this we have covered almost all the questions which we had thought of and more. Are there any other questions which folks would want to ask? I think there is one question. Uh, uh, how is Ayush has asked sometime back? How is Barclays as a firm to work with?
Okay. It's like I said, my interactions with the firm initially were what drove my preference for the firm, and I think Barclays has a very family-like culture, if I may say, right? So you'll have a really good connect with your teammates, and plus you'll get a lot of entrepreneurship. You get to choose your projects relatively more. You get a lot of exposure relatively early on. You have access to pretty much everybody in the firm. So it could be somebody who's heading, say, the entire India practice, and you can just walk up to them, and you will be heard. So I think that's a terrific culture, and that is what has kept me in the firm, because otherwise, the career can be fairly challenging, and
Right.
the team is what makes it worth the while.
Right. Very well said, Shruti, and I hope that answers this question. There was another question which was, can you recommend any short-term certifications in the finance domain?
Uh, I've personally not gone for any short-term certification courses, but I'm sure that there are quite a few courses available from even foreign universities on platforms like Coursera. So those are something that you can explore if you're trying to add some skills during this time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there is one more question from Snigdha. She asked, how do we find internships during these COVID situations? Do you have
Uh,
any?
okay.
Yeah,
I would recommend that be very active on LinkedIn. That is something that would definitely help you out. Don't hesitate in reaching out to people in the industry. If you just drop them a line, more often than not, you'll get a response to it. And plus, the more you're connected with people on LinkedIn, the more you'll have access to posts regarding openings for internships. So it will start showing up on your feed. So that is something that will definitely help. And of course, reach out to your seniors, reach out to your colleagues, and see if they can help you out if they are aware of any opportunities.
right. I think that I hope that answers your question, Snigdha. And with this, we'll sort of end the webinar session. And again, Shruti, thank you for so many insights that you provided us and our viewers and people who will be watching these videos later on as well. And
Thanks a lot for having me.
thank you for taking our time today and sharing your experiences with us. Anything you would want to add as a parting remark to the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, last thing to add is that don't go for a career in finance just because it's a fad. Okay, just build your awareness about what is happening in the field. Speak to as many people as you can, and so that you can take a informed decision.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Shubhi, for all this. And for the folks,
Thanks, Rahul.
we'll be conducting more such sessions. Secomento will be conducting more such sessions in the coming weeks. And please follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook to ensure that you do not miss on the updates and information about subsequent sessions which we have planned for you. A very, thank you to all of us at Secomento, and thanks again, Shubhi, for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Rahul. Bye bye.
Bye.